Culture Report. We are excited to continue bringing our opinions and viewpoints on issues impacting underrepresented communities. So we hope to foster meaningful dialogue with you by bringing you topics that influence cultural conversation. So let's go ahead and jump into it. As we continue to celebrate Black History Month, one controversial conversation happening is the censorship of Black history in schools. I spoke with the CU professor, Ashley Sanders, and asked her, should African American history be included in American history? So let's take a look.
Maybe I'm controversial because I don't think so. To me, I think African American history is very much, it's definitely an element of American history, but also its own thing. I tell students this in my African American History 1 class because there's a whole section of African American history that begins before there is a United States. And I think that there are things that are very much specific, right, to like a Black American experience, but there's also things that I think are going on that may or may not have anything to do with the United States as a nation sometimes. So that's why I think it's very important to have it still as its own particular thing that's specific to Black American identity and history. I think it should be an important element of how US history is taught though. I don't think you can teach a US history class without African American history. That is very true, yes.
Following Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' criticism of the AP African American Studies course, the College Board also faced criticism for its revision of the course framework, which removed elements such as Black queer history. Now, over 30 civil rights and human rights organizations have signed a letter demanding the resignation of College Board CEO David Coleman for the lack of transparency and communication with Florida's Department of Education, in addition to the failure to recognize the harm perpetuated for accusations that the Black History course followed a woke agenda.
All right, and the share of Latinos in the U.S. who speak Spanish at home is declining. According to the Pew Research Center, the percentage declined from 78% in 2000 to 68% in 2021. But an article recently published by the LA Times says there's a resurgence of Latinos that are reclaiming the Spanish language. Second and third generation Latinos are learning the language as adults to connect with the roots and relatives. According to the article, for some, language loss can be a shameful experience, and it is what has led to recent resurgence of Latinos wanting to reclaim their language. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I don't know, I'm going to start with you, Alexia, because I know we discussed a little bit about Spanish on our last episode, but what's your experience been with Spanish?
I don't know any. Unfortunately, I just wasn't taught. I grew up around it, but I never caught on to it, unfortunately. So my parents both speak it. They have broken Spanish, so I think that's why they didn't really teach us, because they didn't know it as well as they don't know it fully. They know broken Spanish, so I think that's why I didn't learn it, unfortunately.
Were you ever inclined to want to learn it, or did they want you to learn, maybe in school or anything?
I did try to learn it, and then sometimes, it's just a little embarrassing being a Latina in a Spanish class and just not knowing it and then trying to speak it and sounding funny. So that's the one reason I just kind of gave up on trying to learn it.
And I think the article touches on that. Sometimes when you're shamed for it, if you're not speaking it well, sometimes that discourages people from wanting to learn it. But at least for me, I remember certain name calling of, people that spoke it funny, and maybe that for me was a trigger to go to school and start learning it that way. And but for others, they just don't speak it at all. But I don't think that makes you less Latino. Yeah. For not speaking it, and I love seeing that more people want to learn it. But I am curious, what do you guys think is spiking this, aside from people wanting to connect with relatives and Well,
roots? I know Bad Bunny was one of the biggest artists across the board last year, and I feel maybe that plays into a little bit of that, him being a Spanish language, Spanish-speaking, singing, rapping artist. I would imagine that's playing a little bit into why second and third generation Latinos are wanting to reclaim their language. So I think that's maybe a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Or that's how I think about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do think, I'm hoping it's not a trend, but it is hot right now. Like you said, Bad Bunny and all these Latin artists are at the top of the charts. And we haven't seen that in recent history.
Right.
So of course, that's probably a reason for the recent interest. And probably just people, I feel being socially aware and just connecting to your roots is big thing right now. Like everyone's talking about their ancestors and doing like ancestry.com and all this stuff. I feel like lately, I don't know if it was through the pandemic or what, but people have been getting really introspective lately. So hopefully it's something that sticks around because I think it's beautiful. I have so many friends back home in Texas. I've been surrounded by Spanish like forever.
Yeah.
So it was inescapable for me, but I didn't want to escape it. I've always wanted to learn Spanish. I took 3 years of Spanish in college. But a lot of my friends face that too. Like they spoke a little Spanish, but they just stopped speaking it because one, they didn't speak it well enough. So they would get like teased by like maybe their family or their extended family. And they're like, ugh, I don't want to, like I sound dumb.
Right.
And they're shamed about it. I'm like, no, like the more you speak it, the more you'll know. And like, you know, that'll be real valuable.
Absolutely.
Down the line.
Do you think it's hindered your connection to your culture, not speaking it?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think I grew up in Florida, so there's a lot of Latinos and Latinos everywhere, and a lot of them didn't speak Spanish either, so I don't feel as bad as I maybe should, but I don't feel that bad. I mean, I would love to learn it still, but I think as an adult, it's a little bit harder to learn a language, so.
It's never too late. That's what I keep telling myself.
Never too late.
But it's deeply rooted in your family, though, Laura.
It is. So my mom speaks only Spanish, and so that's how we spoke it there at home. But even so, I have family members that speak only Spanish, and their kids speak very limited Spanish, which is surprising to me, but I don't know. I think mixed households too have, a lot of those issues too where they don't teach them. But for me, it's like such a rich language. I just wish, if you do have the opportunity to learn it, to practice it, I mean, why not? Why not be bilingual? And if they say you speak it funny, your response should just be, I am bilingual. So are you?
You're right.
There you go. So.
And no more shaming.
No
shaming.
we're
You don't
done
know
with
their
that.
backstory. You don't know their reason. You don't know their reason. Like, 'cause some people, like, their parents taught them. They're like, speak English. Only speak English. We want you to fit in. We don't want you to be outcast. So they just didn't know it. You don't know their reason. So they're not rejecting their culture. They
No.
just weren't taught it.
Yeah.
So please be nice. Be nice. Okay. But yeah, that's beautiful.
I love
Thank you
that.
so much, Laura.
Yeah.
Right, so during Black History Month, it's not often you see people highlighting the struggles of Black people, more so the success. 9 News reporter Darius Johnson sat down with a few Black professionals born and raised in Colorado to learn about how they've dealt with adversity.
Professional, I think the thing that I appreciate most about Denver is the tight-knit community and the willingness for people to help you, support you.
Growing up here, there is a Black community. I was very much so rooted in that Black community, but then there also were challenges. I existed in these two worlds where I would go to these predominantly white institutions or educational institutions during the day, and then I would come back home and play football with all of my teammates at the Pirates. So I was constantly code switching between these various spaces.
A unique, experience as somebody who's both first generation but also multiracial. There's an interesting intersection, and I bring that up because there's a lot of young people like myself who are multiracial. And where do you find space?
Jamal, did you ever have an experience kind of like code switching where you would go to these PWI schools and then you have to switch it once you get home?
Yes, I did go to a PWI in Texas, which I regret sometimes. But yes, I did, absolutely. Because in classes, especially if we had group projects or just around teachers and things, I just want them to know that I'm smart. And because I can be a little, you don't want them to make a snap judgment about you. And I always like to have really good connections with all my professors and my classmates. So I was like, well, I don't know how they're going to take this, so let me just clean it up a little bit. But when I would get around my community, like all my friends that were Black, I'm still friends with them to this day. Those connections you make when you're at a PWI are so special. And yeah, so they're the only people who know what we experience. So sometimes you get to let the veil down.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wish we didn't have to do that, but you don't want to risk it, I guess.
Yeah, what about you, Ashton?
I did my master's in NYU, and then before that I went to film school, and all of that was in New York. So it's kind of like an anomaly because New York's very diverse. And so all my classes were nothing but people of color and other marginalized people. So I felt right at home. So I was surrounded by very diverse groups of people, both in film school and at NYU. So I felt comfortable. It was like when I got to Colorado where I felt a little displaced, especially navigating white spaces, office spaces, work environments. So yeah, in school I was fine. Even though I didn't go to a HBCU, my school was really diverse in my classes.
That's why I love that Darius was able to do that, right? Like just, bring that conversation. I wish we would have been able to speak with him about, his experience and how the idea came about. But it's wonderful that he got to do it.
Yeah, and in his package, in his story, he says, there are Black communities. Have you guys been able to find one here? Like any Black communities or friends and stuff like that? I know, like here in the newsroom, we're very limited on the Black people. But have you found? But outside of the newsroom, have you found that community?
I mean, besides Jamal, my community, my Black community is very small here. It's probably just Jamal.
And Darius. You have Darius too.
And Darius. And I think, it's really hard to cultivate that here, where it's like, it wasn't something I thought about in previous cities I've been in.
Right.
So like, I kind of related to their experience talking about how they've been adamant in cultivating that, because that's something that I'm still trying to do as being like a new transplant here. So.
Same. I feel like back in Texas, that's not something I had to think about because everyone was diverse. So like, I didn't have to think about, I wish I had Black friends. They were everywhere. Everyone was everywhere. But here, if you want that Black community, you have to be really intentional about it.
Right. You have to go and search for it.
You have to search for it. You have to go on Facebook and find the brunches.
They have Bumble for friends now,
Yes, but even I've tried
Jamal's
that.
on it.
I am, but yes, I'm Jamal. I'm on Bumble BFF. But I mean, even then, I'm not swiping left on people just because they're white, but I am, and I'm like, I have an eye out for a little person of color. They're just few and far in between. Like my hands start cramping up before I find somebody that's brown. So.
I love learning so much about you guys. Thank you for sharing those.
Of course, anytime. I'm always here to overshare.
All right, so this weekend, the 76th British Academy Awards took place in London. And according to BBC News, 40% of the nominees belong to ethnic minorities. With that being said, none of those people won throughout the night. All 49 awards that were given out belonged to white nominees. So we have 9 News entertainment reporter Erica Lopez here to join our conversation today.
Thank you for having me, you beautiful people. I'm honored to be on the Culture Report.
Thank you. So I guess my question is, none of the winners were ethnic minorities. Why do you guys think that is? We're in 2023 already. Why do you guys think that's happening?
I think one of the reasons it was so astonishing, aside from the beyond talented minorities who were deserving, this is, I feel like, one of the first award shows where we've actually seen these positive changes where people are being nominated of minorities and winning because they're deserving. So truly, I don't know why. It's appalling, honestly.
There were so many nominees that, Michelle Wu. She's been winning all the awards, and she didn't win this award.
Yeah.
I'm kind of confused on why it's happening, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, it's sad to see that. Joaquin Phoenix did say in previous awards of the BAFTAs that, it's a clear message to colored people that they're not welcome here. And they did make a lot of changes. So it's very surprising that it's happening again and again and again. And I don't know if change really is coming or if they just do it once there's controversy and, cover it up one time and then move on and keep doing the same thing.
Right. The nominations aren't enough. We need to see the people winning that deserve to be winning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think they deserve to win just because they're people of color.
Right.
And I don't want that for people to think you want us to give them an award just because, they're Black or they're Hispanic. No, we don't want to do that. But when the talent is there, it's there. Let's be real.
Yep.
For some of those people, they were a shoe-in.
Yeah.
Why are they winning in all the other cacategories on the other award shows, but not winning there? So
maybe the UK just needs to catch up.
A little behind.
Who knows? But I don't know. But everything's not bad. We do have some representation on screen.
Yes.
You interviewed someone recently.
We do. So Aba Arthur is a CU Boulder graduate, and last year she was cast in the new Black Panther film Wakanda Forever, which is so incredible. Small role, but there are no small roles, right? And this has launched her career to no end. We're going to talk a little bit about that on the backside of this, but I want you all to hear her story. Aba's big break came in Marvel's Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
I stepped on set knowing that I was entering this massive franchise and understanding the cultural impact as well.
An impact Aba does not take for granted. But now little girls and boys are seeing you. What would it have meant if you saw more people like you when you were growing up?
It wouldn't have felt so far away. it wouldn't have felt like it was impossible. I would see them on TV and I would feel like, I know I'm supposed to be there, but I don't know how to get there.
Something that once felt impossible is now her reality. I mean, truly incredible. One soundbite in the story that I absolutely loved is she said, if you don't see a role for yourself, create it.
Right.
She said a big part of her journey, she wasn't seeing, you know, any actresses like her on screen or roles for herself. So she started writing, and she has a lot of work that she says in the coming years we're actually going to see come to life. So it's, you know, you got to make it for yourself sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agree with
What was her connection to Colorado, or how did she end up here?
She grew up in the Springs,
Okay.
and she graduated from CU Boulder. Yeah, she did. She was a theater major. So yeah, I mean, it's been years since she's graduated, and she is just getting this major break, and you know, huge Marvel film, obviously. So her career's blown up. She's actually going to be in the new Color Purple adaptation that Oprah and Gail are doing.
I'm excited for.
I know.
Babe.
Halle Bailey's in that too, and we talked about that.
Danielle Brooks.
Who is, you know, going to be Ariel in the new Little Mermaid, and
Right.
we talked about some of that, and I asked her, are you really seeing changes in Hollywood? Like, we're seeing it with this award season, aside from the BAFTAs, you know, where we're at, you know, with Angela Bassett, who was in this film, and breaking records for Black women in Hollywood. And she said, we're seeing the changes, but there's still a long way to go.
I thought it was great to that particular film because it also brought out Tenoch Huerta, whom is also like their first indigenous superhero.
Yeah.
So to see him, and also Lupita Nyong'o, she's Kenyan and Mexican, I was like, oh my goodness, all these Mexican actors are getting more roles too. So that's very exciting to see, at least in my part.
And Black Panther is one of a kind in that, making a platform for minorities, and that's what it's about. So we need more of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it means a lot. Like, I know it feels so trivial when we're like, oh, seeing somebody on screen, it feels so cliche, but it really is important, and it really gives the people that push to like, oh, I can do this. Because like growing up, I didn't really see too many. I mean, I saw, you know, Black people on TV, but they were all like, you know, they look like models, or like, I was like, well, I don't look like that, so that's obviously not an avenue for me. But, you know, through the years, you know, we've seen all different types of people show up on the screen. So
How special is it to get your big break with like, Black Panther? Like, that is just like really, really, has to be really, really special, I would imagine.
And you heard her say it there. It was this, had she seen more people like her, it wouldn't have felt so far away.
Right.
So she gets to be the little start of the next generation, feeling more hopeful for maybe attaining these dreams that they have, and they should absolutely still have.
awesome. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
joining us,
Erica.
Erica.
Okay, each and every week we want to end with the good happening in and around the culture. So here is our good news. White Sox baseball player Anderson Comas has come out as gay in a post on Instagram. In that post, he said he's doing this to be an inspiration for those that like him out there fighting for their dreams.
All right, and Gina Mendez Miro makes history as Puerto Rico's first LGBTQ federal judge. The U.S. Senate voted 54-42 to approve Mendez Miro, marking the Biden administration's 100th federal court appointment.
And after spending 10 months detained in Russia and missing the entire 2022 WNBA season, Brittany Griner is back. She's officially returning with the Phoenix Mercury on a one-year contract.
Right, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation just launched a new website designed to prevent people with Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, brain injuries, or other developmental disorders from wandering off and going missing. Now, if you didn't know, Black and Hispanic people are at a substantially higher risk of developing dementia than other ethnic groups. So hopefully this new program will help a lot of families prevent a lot of heartache. All right, thank you all for joining us for this episode of The Culture Report. We'll be back to continue the conversation next Thursday, right here on 9 News Plus and 9news.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.